Hi Gav, what are we talking about this week?
Em, you start by reminiscing on your experiences of the CELTA.
You quiz me on my TEFL experience and I throw back the questions to you.
Yes, I asked you about unusual places to teach, cute pets, long journeys and competitive students.
We express mixed feelings about the CELTA.
And discuss how we bring our training into our classrooms.
Gav, you talk about students being shaped by their teachers.
And we wrap up with first impressions and final outcomes.
That means it's time to cue the music, roll the titles, and begin Gav and Em's How to English TEFL Pod.
Welcome everybody, this is How to English, Teach and Learn with Gav and Em.
It's a podcast about teaching and learning English as a foreign language.
All opinions stated are personal and references will be given when necessary.
Hey Gav.
Hey Em, and welcome to the followers to episode 9, season 7 of Gav and Em's How to English TEFL Pod.
We are halfway through the year of our lately I've been thinking about topics where we sit and ruminate on what TEFL is and what we think about it and ideas that pop in our heads. Anything really. Learning, teaching. It's all a bit mixed.
That's absolutely true. We are filled with TEFL knowledge that we would like to share with our followers, and I'm pretty sure that our experiences will reflect the experiences that they also have in the classroom, whether they are teachers or learners.
I like that, Gav, because yes, I think as a TEFL teacher we've all walked perhaps a similar path, we've followed a similar journey, or maybe not, but if anyone out there would like to share with us their journey and how it's different or similar, we'd love to hear from you.
I don't think there is one set path to becoming a TEFL teacher, Em.
Do you not?
I think you could come from any discipline and you could find yourself teaching English as a foreign language.
Well, maybe that's why it's so interesting and the people you meet along the way are memorable. Quite a lot of the time, Gav, when I look back on my TEFL experience, I remember a lot of people I've met, fellow teachers and students, DOSes, ADOSes, and yeah, it's the people really that are the memories for me.
And occasionally the lessons that they teach can also stay in one's mind.
That's true too. Yeah, of course, topics, locations, grammar that's done well or done badly. It's all in there somewhere. I do remember a lot. But this leads me, Gav, to the first topic.
I was going to say, this leads me perfectly
It leads
to
me
perfectly to my first topic.
I want to start. I've got a topic. Okay, you go first.
It's a very short and sweet topic.
Is it linked to what we were just talking about?
Perfectly.
Okay.
You would not believe how similar it is to your beautiful introduction.
Go on then.
I've been thinking about making you a mini true or false quiz.
How is this connected?
It's connected perfectly because it covers all of the topics you just referred to.
Right. I feel like mine was a bit more related, but we'll see. Let's proceed.
Let's jump right in with Gav's true or false TEFL quiz, or possibly yes or no, or a short answer would also be accepted.
Yep.
Let's begin. Number 1, the most unusual place you've taught English.
In an art gallery.
That is quite unusual.
Yes. Well, it's also amazing. But I mean, I was toying with supermarket, radio, TV tower.
Didn't you once teach in a cupboard?
I did, but not one I'd like to really focus on.
That's fairly memorable, though.
Yeah, that's a great question. Can I throw these back to you, Gav? Where was the most unusual place you've ever taught?
I once taught in a bathroom and airport, seaport, garden centre.
Nice. Oh, gas refinery. I'm going to throw in also.
Plenty of manufacturing plants.
Nice.
Moving on to our second question. Which was your student's cutest pet?
Well, I may have mentioned this a while back, but one of my students had a chameleon, which was very cute and unusual, actually.
That is both cute and unusual. Did it change colour while you talked to it?
No, I don't know if they can do that on request. But yeah, it was very cool. And yours, Gav?
I often see the hind of cats.
The hind of cats? What is a hind?
They always seem to be passing the screen. I just see the backside of a cat as it disappears off screen.
I've usually just got students holding them up, Lion King styley, but the cat's not really going with it. The hind of cats is your most unusual, or what was it? Memorable. Cutest pet. Yeah, okay, if you like that kind of thing.
I think my students have only got cats. I can't think of any other pets. No, there are dogs. There are plenty of dogs. Yes,
that
yapping.
other animal that's quite common as a pet, yeah.
Very cute. Jumping around and barking, which we can't hear through the Teams chat because it's been filtered out.
Yes. They often apologise for things you can't hear. You're like, no, I can't hear it. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Number 3. What's the furthest you've travelled for work?
Ooh, 2 hours on a bus, train, in a taxi, one way, I would just like to emphasise. That's probably the longest journey.
2 hours is an excessively long time. And were you teaching for 6 hours?
Yeah, I think it was maybe 8 hours? I can't remember exactly. It was a long time ago, but I had 4 lessons. They may have been 90 minutes or they may have been 2-hour lessons. It was worth going for that amount of time, but yeah, that was a long day. 4 hours travelling.
And 6 hours teaching. That's a 10-hour day.
Or 12 if it was 8. I can't remember exactly, but 10 or 12, it's exhausting, yes.
Absolutely. I travelled to China once.
Just for one lesson?
No. I stayed there for longer than just one lesson.
Oh, well, I thought your question was on a daily commute, but you mean as a job.
Well, I decided to reinterpret that question and give a much more impressive answer.
Oh, okay. I like that answer.
I think it was at least 12 hours travelling one way.
Well, it would be.
Question 4. What's the weirdest thing a student has ever called you by accident?
Called me? Like mum? Is that what you mean? No, I don't, that's never happened. Really happy to say that's never happened. I don't think anybody's called me anything. I think they call me Anne sometimes because they think my name's Anne, not Em. But that's not really weird, is it? Was it weird? Did you say weird?
Weirdest.
Have you been called something weird?
I have, but I'm not sure I can repeat it now.
Whoa.
Because the student might be listening.
Wow. Because there's only going to be one person who's called you that, I suppose.
You're right. It was basically dear.
Oh.
I don't think it was intentional.
Maybe that's what they call their partner and they just forgot where they were for a second.
Exactly. Moving on. Number 5. What's your emergency TEFL survival item?
Item, not lesson. A TEFL survival item. A soft cushion, because I teach online. It's essential. Yours?
It has to be coffee.
Coffee that you can get us at ko-fi.com/howtoenglishpod?
It could be that type of coffee, yes. Number 6. Which classroom game became way more competitive than it should have?
These are great. I wish I'd had time to plan them and think of some good answers. Game that became way more competitive.
I can give you my answer while you're thinking of yours.
That might help. Go on.
I remember playing Put the Time on the Board.
Is this like pin the tail on the donkey?
Yeah. And the students had to run up to the board, place the time or some expression or something on the board, run back, and then the next student would run up.
So they had paper or plastic hands cut out and they had to put them in the right position when you called out 7:15.
Something like that.
That's fun.
It was fun, but they were getting really aggressive.
Oh.
And then started shouting when I gave the points to the wrong group.
Is this children we're talking about?
No. They were adults.
They're worse. Okay. Yeah, I think definitely board running, dictation type games get the blood pressure up. I've had some quite tense games of pairs or Pelmanism where students are just desperate because they've remembered where the pairs are on the cards and they're waiting and then somebody else gets their pair and there's quite a lot of stress and
Swearing,
yeah.
in English, I hope.
Mixed, but yeah, preferably in English if you can just keep your bad language to one language.
I have noticed that students do tend to revert to their first language when they get very, very excited.
Yes, that happens, and that's an opportunity for a teacher to teach something if that's something you want to do.
It's worth reminding the students that they should be speaking English all the time in the class.
Even when it's bad English. Or offensive English.
That's all my quick fire true or false, yes or no, or a simple sentence answer. So thank you very much. I enjoyed that.
I did too. There were no true or false questions, but it doesn't matter. It's not about that, is it, Gav?
It's not. It doesn't really matter.
Nobody's checking.
No.
We don't care.
No angry participants at the end of this activity.
It was all good. And it was a nice little lead-in, I think, to the topic of memorable moments and things that really stuck with us as we came up in our TEFL journey. And when I think back to the CELTA, Gav, I have mixed feelings. It was a very stressful time, but it was an incredibly enjoyable and rewarding time. But I do reflect sometimes on the teaching style and the way the CELTA tries to mould you as a teacher, to say, take an exercise out of a book, use it, exploit it, try and get as much out of it as you possibly can. Wring it dry, in fact. I felt sometimes it was slightly laboured or a little bit convoluted, and maybe it's a good skill to have to be able to drag out an exercise or lengthen it, extend it, whatever you want to say. I'd say it was maximising it from the CELTA point of view. But I do think sometimes it can get tedious, and students are quite happy to go through things quite quickly. And I think the CELTA trainers did say if the students are picking up the language quickly, you can maybe skip that section or go a bit faster. But I think it's really good to keep that in mind. Even now, when my CELTA was 20 years ago, I still think, is this a task I want to spend more time on, or is this something I should skip and move on because it's not that useful? Do you still think about your CELTA, Gav, and the things you learned?
I do, for exactly the reason you just explained, that these resources, these materials, a worksheet could be exploited to an extraordinary level, or simply abandoned because it's boring and the students want to go on and study something else.
Yeah, so I think it's really, really good. I think it's really valuable what I got from the CELTA in that respect. Every aspect of every task can be changed, manipulated, extended, shortened.
Can be a pitfall.
Could be a boon. So I think that's really good to analyse, or to be a little bit more selective about what we do. And it's also helped me see my role as a teacher as more of a enabler, because I remember that was a big thing in CELTA, that you're not just teaching or lecturing or presenting, you're eliciting, you're encouraging, you're helping students to find their own voice and to find their own way. And it's a great technique that students guess, analyse the language, try and predict language.
Experiment with the language in a safe environment.
And that was incredibly important to think about all the time, how to throw it back to students, how to get students producing, how to not just give them everything. But on the flip side of that, I got a bit frustrated sometimes with my CELTA trainers because they didn't just tell me the answers. Sometimes you can just give an answer, it takes a second, you move on, but it was very much, well, what do you think? And where do you see that language? And it's a training of your brain, I guess. But I did find it a bit annoying. Did you?
It was a little repetitive. And you're right, sometimes I just wanted to know what the answer was, and I thought there was just one answer. And typically there was one answer. But we did get to hear from other people's experiences, which was interesting in the group activities on the CELTA.
Yeah, which was good to see other perspectives. So maybe there isn't one answer. Maybe that's the point of CELTA, is there are lots of interpretations. But I mean, if you want to just know the form of whatever tense you're teaching. It was a bit like, just tell me, rather than, elicit all the other tenses and how would that be made and what does that mean for this one. And I got a bit annoyed with that. And yeah, like you said, it was predictable. You would know if you asked a question, you just weren't going to get the answer, which may be the training of just don't ask. I felt a bit uninclined to ask questions in the end because I knew that I wouldn't get an answer. So I do wonder if students keep getting that response of, well, what do you think? And let's work it out. And maybe they just don't ask in the end.
It could affect their confidence as well, because if they simply want to ask the teacher, Teacher M, what's the form of this grammar, present perfect continuous, and they want a simple answer from you, have plus been plus verb ing, but instead the teacher says, class, what's the form of this? Maybe the student's going to feel a bit self-conscious and disinclined to ask any more questions.
Yeah, it makes a big deal out of it, perhaps, when it shouldn't be. But I think there's arguments against this criticism I have. I think it's very good to encourage students to think for themselves. And when they're in the outside world, they don't have anyone to ask except for their phones, I suppose, now. But I'd like to know other people's experiences of CELTA and what they felt about it, because that was my only criticism, really. Everything else was super.
I try not to bring too much of that repetitive checking in my class, although I am guilty of often asking the other students, what do you think is the answer to this student's question? And I can't be absolutely sure that it's the right thing to do, but it is a good way to keep everybody engaged and curious.
It is. I, again, try and judge it every time. Is this something we need to focus on? Is it going to be useful to get into the deep analysis of it? Or can we just quickly answer this and move on? It's a constant evaluation for me. Gav, one thing I will say about the CELTA is it was absolutely amazing. And I loved how different it was from school. It was a real eye-opener to how teaching can be enjoyable, fun, engaging, just different. And my trainers were also attentive and just lovely people. So I think that's also something I've taken with me, that we should be personable and friendly and approachable and create a space that's comfortable for everyone. If you do that, then you're halfway there, really.
And you try to reflect that in your classes? So you're personable, friendly, open, inviting?
Yeah, try to be as much as possible, because I think that's what my CELTA trainers were, and I think that's one big takeaway that I got, is how nice everybody was.
Unlike your school experience, which was the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. The teachers were authoritarian and
dictatorial.
Exactly. Dictatorial. Yeah, it was very strict. Not a nice place. Didn't feel light, didn't feel fun, wasn't enjoyable. I'd strive to make my lessons as engaging and to make my classroom as welcoming as possible.
That sounds like a delightful place to visit, Em.
Thanks, Gav.
Em, I have been considering, or I should say wondering, whether you've taught anyone else's student.
As a cover class, yes, occasionally.
And I guess any student has come from somewhere with some knowledge passed on by some teacher, and then eventually that student comes to you.
Yeah, that's true as well, because they are all other people's students, and very rarely have I ever taught someone who's had no English whatsoever. Yeah, I thought you were talking more about cover classes, but it's both, yes.
I'm quite happy to talk about cover classes as well. Have you sensed the stamp of a previous teacher upon your new student?
Of course, yes, in many ways. There are always visible traces of teacher styles, and I've had, in a very literal way, students show me that, where I've asked them to move chairs at the beginning of the lesson, and they've said, no, we can't sit there because that's where that student sits. And I've said, well, I can tell you that student's not coming today, so can you just move so you can do some pair work? And they said, no, because that's the other person's seat. That was weird.
They wouldn't change seats because the other seat was reserved specifically for another student who was not coming that lesson.
Yeah. And I put that on the teacher, to be honest, because I think the teacher needs to set that up as a dynamic of sit in different places every week, or make sure you're talking to somebody you haven't spoken to. And that was very strange to think that that was so rigid.
Did you manage to change the student's mind?
No, that was a very cold and sombre cover class that day. I felt very uncomfortable. But then, yes, also it's visible immediately with the dynamic of the group. I'm thinking groups now. If you ask a question and the students talk directly to the teacher, or as soon as you ask the question, they turn and start discussing it as a group, you can see very quickly whether the teacher has encouraged that kind of dynamic or not.
They've been trained that behaviour.
Yeah, I think it is definitely something the teacher puts into place.
I've experienced that too, where I say to the student, tell your partner about this thing, and instead of turning to their partner, the student turned to me and told me about that thing.
Yeah.
Which was not what I asked.
No.
I can see why students might prefer to talk to the teacher, because that's why some of them come to the class, because they want to speak to a teacher. But I think, as you said, modelling a behaviour that might mean they talk to each other could be a good experience for them too.
Then that can also go a bit too far, where I've had cover classes where clearly the students have come just for a break from their work and they've spent the hour just chatting to each other without really engaging me at all or looking at me at all. They're clearly using it just as a social thing.
Were they focused on the language?
No, they're literally just chatting, and sometimes not even in English. And you think, well, how has this happened? You've come here just for a social thing and there's no structure there. And as a cover teacher, it's very hard to step in and suddenly say, well, we're going to be doing this today, when you can clearly see that they've never really had that kind of lesson and they're all just really close in that way. And that's another uncomfortable lesson in a different way. You kind of just collect your stuff at the end and you say bye and you leave because they're not paying any attention to you as a teacher.
Are you suggesting it can take a long time to train the students to behave in a way that would help them learn better?
Yeah, I think we're borderline sounding a bit like we're training animals here, but when I say training, we know that it means, just establishing habits that are healthy and positive for learning. So I think there's a balance you've got to get. It's nuanced because there is a very fine line between too much teacher talk and too much student talk and making sure everybody's talking at equal amounts.
And if you're focusing too much on the language, you won't get a natural production from the student.
That's right too. So when I walk into a cover class, I can immediately see where the scales are tipping into, the teacher's obviously done a lot of talking in this one, or the teacher hasn't taken control of the class on this one and the students are just running the show. That is immediately clear within the first 5 minutes, I'd say.
Not that we're criticising any teachers.
Of course not, but it's visible, I think.
I am often surprised then when I take a cover class or maybe take over a new group from another teacher and find that there are some, in my mind, basic mistakes that haven't been ironed out of the students' language.
You mean, like, for example, if they're using present simple to talk about the past and they're B1?
That's exactly what I mean.
The previous teacher has clearly let things slide a little bit too much.
I think so. Unless the students thought, well, it's a new teacher, I'm just going to go back to using present simple for everything.
And I think that's quite unlikely that they make that conscious decision. So I agree. I think it is a bad habit that hasn't been corrected.
Yeah, just to wrap up on that, I have some fixed language in my head that I would expect to be used perfectly by the student of that level. So if it's A2, I want to hear some nice verbs. If it's B1, I want to hear some good tenses. If it's C1, I want some lovely idiomatic language.
Yeah.
Does this mean the teacher tried and gave up, or possibly didn't try? Or the third option, Em, could be that the student is unteachable?
No, Gav, definitely not the third option. I think you're right. either laziness on the teacher's part, where they've just tried and just given up, which I know it's hard, but we have to keep on and on. And if it didn't work, maybe they just needed to try a different technique and persist. Yeah, nobody's unfixable.
Unteachable?
Yeah.
I've never met one.
So I think it's apparent when you take over or you get a new group that there have been errors. There have been errors made, and they have not been corrected. And that's also on the other teacher. And while we're on the topic of new courses, new students beginning with a course, I've been thinking, Gav, about the pressure we have as teachers to make the right impression at the beginning. And I do feel we are judged the way we judge students, the way we judge previous teachers of students. We all judge, don't we?
First impressions, Em.
Yeah. And if I think about it too much, I think I would be a wobbling jelly of nerves. But there is a lot of pressure on the first lesson to get it right, and I think the students are judging us quite a lot.
Em, I wear a collared shirt for the first lesson.
Really?
I'm very professional.
Well, these are good ways to create a mirage of confidence, but it's all about really what you say and what you teach and what you correct and how you set up the group, and all of this is happening in the first lesson.
You have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
That's right. A collared shirt is not going to cut it if you fluff up on the form of present perfect.
That's absolutely true. Fortunately, that has never happened before.
You never fluffed up the form of present perfect.
Oh, maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, we all do make mistakes, but I just feel that first lesson is crucial and more likely to go wrong. It does seem like the odds are stacked against us, that we're nervous, we're more likely to make mistakes, and that is the time it is the most important to not make mistakes. So I've just tried to be good to myself as I've gone through the years of starting courses, having a first lesson. I've just tried to tell myself, it doesn't matter how much you stress, it's going to happen. You're going to make a mistake. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just move on, make the best of it, and do what you can.
I have my own method.
Of what?
Of delivering this lesson.
Your first lesson.
I have a basic plan in my mind, and then I have a switch on the back of my head.
What's the switch for?
It's my autopilot.
Oh. Go on, I think we need you to explain this, Gav. What are you talking about?
I begin the lesson, I switch on the autopilot, and then, the next thing I know, I switch it off again, and the lesson is finished.
I don't believe you. What are you talking about? You can't go on to autopilot. There's so much going on.
Well, it just seems to happen, Em. I sit down, I open my eyes, the lesson begins, and would you know it, the lesson's all over again. And I've got notes, I've got
perspiration around my collar. Well, I don't really believe you, but what I think you're saying is it's a blur afterwards. It's a big blur. You know it's happened, but you don't really know how it's happened.
You've just got to get through it because it's the first one. It's where you meet everybody the first time. It's where you're going to fluff something up, but hopefully they're going to like you or at least trust you or think that wasn't a complete waste of time, or this course is going to be a disaster. I wish I'd never signed up for it.
Yeah, it requires everyone to just relax a bit, I think. And that, again, the first 5 minutes is the crucial time to set the tone of the lesson. So if you, as a teacher, are tense, visibly anxious, fumbling things, dropping pens, fluffing all the things you're saying because you're so nervous, then you're going to set the tone for the students. And I think they reflect that energy a bit. So everybody gets tense, everybody gets more nervous. I think even if you do make a mistake, you've just got to own it. Say, sorry, I'm a bit nervous. I think that makes students like you a bit more, if you're honest.
Or you could deliberately drop your papers and then the students think, oh, he's really sweet and not scary. I think he's going to be a good teacher.
I don't know about that. I think I heard somebody once say that they fall into the classroom at the beginning just to make students laugh, to break the tension. But
That's a great idea.
I don't know whether it breaks the tension. I think it would, for me anyway, create tension. I would be very stressed if I saw that. But it's whatever you want to do. I just think it's not that much pressure as much as you create in your own head. You just need to enjoy it, try and enjoy it, because you're right, the first lesson is the hardest, and then you kind of all breathe out a bit, loosen that collar maybe, and it's easier after that. But I think everybody's nervous.
I just try to leave my students with a reassuring feeling at the end of the lesson that we will fulfill all their requirements that they requested from the course.
How do you do that?
I listen very attentively when they tell me what they want to study.
You write down everything and you say, I've written it all down.
I write everything down, and as I said, by the end of the lesson, hopefully everything will be there prepared for me to plan the rest of the course.
And worst case, you forget something, you ask them next time. But I think we just need to be kind to ourselves. Don't put too much pressure on ourselves and don't overthink it. Because if you do start thinking too much, it's a terrifying amount of pressure that you have on you as a teacher. I'm trying to see new lessons as an opportunity and enjoy them a bit more. New classes as a way of challenging previous fears I had, having a bit more fun with it. Maybe that's what comes with experience, Gav.
Has it?
Yeah, I think it has. I think now I'm finally, after 20 years, starting to relax a little bit.
I'm still thinking about falling into the classroom, sorry.
You're going to try that, are you?
Totally. How can you do that on Teams?
I don't know.
I'm going to find a way.
When I think back to classes I have maybe made errors with at the beginning or done something wrong, it still worked out. I still got them on my side and I still managed to get a great relationship with them, even if it was a bit of a rocky start.
I think it's okay to be fallible in front of your students. You need to just be yourself, and if you make mistakes, try to fix them. You can always ask students to fix it.
How? What? Huh?
Maybe they know the form of present perfect.
Oh.
Going back to our CELTA training.
What do you think it is? Just, buy yourself some time.
And then you can Google it in the background. I think this leads us perfectly to the end of the show, where I have certainly enjoyed hearing about your experiences and your ways of dealing with what are sometimes quite difficult situations.
That was a nice chat, Gav. I liked how we went back to the past a little bit. Got a bit nostalgic, didn't it? It was nice to think back to how it started, to where we are now, and how it's changed and morphed, and reflect on other teachers' teaching styles.
And we've come out sunny at the end.
I think we have. I feel good. Looking forward to doing all this again with you next time.
Me too. Bye for now, Em.
Bye, Gav.